Christian Church, and I am one of the volunteer representatives for A Night to Shine. What is A Night to Shine? A Night to Shine is an unforgettable prom night experience centered on God's love for people with special needs, ages 14 and older. This February 7, 2020, A Night to Shine celebrates the 6th anniversary. This past year, on one night, 655 churches from around the world came together to host A Night to Shine. And One Love Christian Church was one of the churches that were hosted for A Night to Shine. Why did One Love Christian Church choose to do A Night to Shine? We chose to do A Night to Shine because, as our motto states, advancing God's kingdom by loving God's people, one soul at a time. And we love on each and every individual. And those that have special needs are very special, and we love on each and every one of them. The requirements to be a volunteer for A Night to Shine basically states you have to go through a training, you have to go through a background check, you have to complete several forms, such as a liability release, a media release, a background authorization, and permission slips form for those that are ages 18 and under. For our honored guests, interaction tips. General tips for communicating with our honored guests. When offering assistance to a person with a disability, wait until they ask for help. Never go upon yourself and do whatever you think will be best without asking that individual. Address them just as if you were addressing anyone else. It is acceptable to offer a handshake during an introduction, even if the other person has limited mobility in their hands or other limbs. Do not alter your voice or speak in any type of harsh manner. If an interpreter is present, speak directly to that person and not the interpreter. Do not ever lean on anyone's wheelchair. Do not interact with service animals without asking first. If the person with whom you are speaking has a visual disability, make sure you identify your person and any persons who may be accompanying them. Be patient with your buddy. Never rush them, because you never know what their limitations may be. When interacting with your VIP kids, try to include your VIP in whatever activity that is available. You never want to seclude them from doing anything, and you always want to make sure that they're comfortable. Be creative when you're playing with your VIP. Never just assume that they want to play or assume that they want to do something and they might not want to. Be creative with that person. If that person has a limited motor skill or they're not able to use any other limb, do the hand-over-hand technique with that person. Use a child's senses to heighten their play. Kids with visual impairments might enjoy activities with more audio stimulation, while those with hearing impairments might enjoy activities that are more visual. Present your VIP with 2 or 3 other choices, never limiting them to one activity. Present them with something that will be age appropriate. You don't want to give a child something that you think or assume will be beneficial for them when it might be for a teenager or an adult. Keep in mind that some children may be sensitive to touch, sound, and light, or maybe textures. Be sensitive to the way that your VIP child may interact. Recognize that most common ways in which nonverbal children interact are smiling, vocalizing, or maybe fussing, holding up an object, pulling on someone's hand or arm, requesting an object or an action by using gestures. Remember that a child can express their feelings through his or her behaviors. Preventing and handling uncomfortable situations. If you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, do not be afraid to ask for help. There will always be someone that will help you, whether another volunteer or your coordinator for that night. Some signs or overstimulations include yelling, screaming, and crying, fearful looks, or any type of aggression. Maintain your composure and speak kindly at all times. You never want to offend anyone. Never go off alone with any guests. Make sure that you always have someone there with you to accompany them. When things don't go as planned, accidents and incidents. An incident or accident is an unplanned event that results in an injury, could have resulted in an injury, or results in a damage or equipment property. Immediately report an incident if you see something going on with your buddy, if you see something going on with your volunteer, if you see something going on with your honored guest, or with anybody of that night. Always report it. You never want to leave anything under the rug. If you see a child that's misplaced, it is unlikely that during the event that a child escapes. That's why you're supposed to always be with your buddy. Notify the buddy coordinator or staff immediately if you see something uncommon. People's first language. When speaking with your guests, you always want to use appropriate language and tone with them, and you always want to use specific words and phrases. You never want to be rude or disrespectful towards your honored guests, or just to anyone in general. So what may be offensive terms, such as handicapped, disabled, retarded, deaf or dumb, autistic, wheelchair bound, a victim of, a person that suffers from, or better yet, slow. You never want to use offensive terms because that is just plain disrespectful to your buddy and to their family. Offensive phrases would be, instead of saying a disabled person, say a person with disabilities. Especially, instead of saying a special needs person, say a person with special needs. Instead of saying wheelchair-bound person, say a person in a wheelchair. You want to use specific phrases and specific terms for them. Safety and wellness policies. Never ever leave your VIP unattended because you never know what could happen to that person. Never turning your back on them and not paying attention. Always pay attention to your VIP and never leave them alone. You're their buddy specifically for that night. So you're basically taking care of your buddy that night. Bathroom and diaper procedure. No one is ever to be alone with a child when changing their diaper or escorting them to the restroom. And when that VIP says they need to use the restroom, or they may not say they need to use the restroom. But when you take that person to the restroom, there will always be someone at the restroom station, at the nursing station that will help assist you, so that you will never be alone. And if there is no one there, always ask for another volunteer to assist you. Handling bodily fluids, always use gloves and keep your hands washed at all times, just to protect you and also protect your buddy. Washing hands. Proper use of washing hands. After accompanying your child to the restroom, after eating, if you see something on the floor, just to make sure that everything remains clean for you and your buddy. We don't want anyone to get sick. Medical concerns. If you have any medical concerns about your VIP child, contact the doctor or nurse that will be on the premises. Health and wellness of volunteer. Due to fragile medical conditions and compromised immune systems, you always want to make sure if you see anything irregular regarding your VIP or your volunteer, always speak up and tell someone. Abuse. The disturbing and traumatic rise of physical and sexual abuse of children has claimed the attention of the nationwide. Adult volunteers should immediately report any behaviors that they see that is inappropriate to your coordinator or to another volunteer. Never promise a child or a parent that you're going to do something and never stick with it. Managing difficult behaviors. Managing difficult behaviors by responding appropriately. We always want to use redirecting behaviors. Respond calmly when a child begins engaging in inappropriate behaviors. Give the VIP specific directions to do what you think seems to be appropriate. This is called redirecting. And never raise your voice at your VIP guests because you never want to offend them or hurt their feelings. React with care. When you react emotionally and focus on the negative behavior, a child is likely to repeat the unwanted action due to your response. So please, please, please speak appropriate to your honored guests. When a child has a meltdown, have a plan in the event a child experiences a meltdown. First and foremost, it is critical to prevent him or her from injuring themselves or injuring anyone else. If you see that a child is having a meltdown, you always want to report it so that you can take the child to the nearest room so that they can speak with the nurse or just allow them to calm down and to relax until the child is well. Basic disability etiquette. In meeting someone with disability, it is important to remember that we are all made in God's image, and first and foremost, our abilities are secondary to who we are as individuals. Let your words and actions emphasize the person's worth and ability, not the disability condition. The medical conditions these children have are disabilities and not diseases. You have an opportunity to get to know someone from the inside and not the outside before you form any opinion of them. Try to look beyond the disability and into the child's heart. Here are some things to remember. Remember not to label a child as part of a disability group. Instead, always put that person before the disability. Always emphasize a person's abilities, not their limitations. Acknowledge the presence of an individual with a disability just as if you were to acknowledge anyone else. If they are unable to shake your hand, just touching or clasping your hand is fine. If they don't respond, don't worry. A warm smile and friendly greeting is always the best. Just because a person cannot talk does not necessarily mean they do not understand what you're saying. Always speak directly to that individual and not indirectly. Even if a company or family member is with them, always speak to that person individually. If you feel they may not be able to reply in a full, ask a question that allows a yes or no response. If you are not able to understand what they are saying, it is okay to ask if they will repeat their statement to you. Always ask before reaching out to provide assistance. Don't assume anything. Use the same tone of voice, choice of words, and nonverbal language as you normally would with anyone else. Changing the way a person interacts having a disability can cross as a demeaning or baby talk. Do not give excessive praise or attention to a person with disability. Do not hesitate to use words such as see, walk, and hear. More than likely, the person with the disability also uses these words in terms. When you use the word with instead of for, it lets your VIP know that you are joining him or her in that activity. Always use uplifting terms and avoid using phrases such as we stated earlier, wheelchair bound, affiliated by, or crippled. If an individual is in a wheelchair, do not lean on that wheelchair. It is not furniture. It is considered to be a part of that individual's body. Also, when talking to someone in a wheelchair, either sit, squat, or just get on one knee so that you're able to communicate with that person face to face. Remember that some disabilities are not physically observational. Remember that people with disabilities want to be accepted and not pitied on. Treat your VIP with dignity, respect, and just common courtesy as if you were to treat anyone else. Always wear your garment of love. And remember, we are more than alike than different.